Hi, everybody. I'm broadcasting live. I hope this works. I've quite tried this before, so apologies if it hopefully should work out successfully. In any event, we're going to talk today about this is going to be the official psychology and Torah shiur of the week, almost like you'd have in Yeshiva, just a little different. In some respect, it ends up being a bit kind of appropriate for what's going on today in the world, and I'll try to touch on that as we go through. But I hope that everyone has a link to the Makorot sheet, to the source sheet that is there. If you didn't get it already via WhatsApp, so then it's a link to it is posted down in the comment section at the bottom. You should be able to download it from there. Okay, so let's get started. The shiur is really called Tragedy and Suffering. I think if I would have come up with a less exciting but more accurate title, it would have been Coping Intellectually and Emotionally with Suffering, and try to deal with what are some of the things that a person can deal with from a Torah and psychology perspective when tragedy occurs. Think about the questions of maybe why it happened, what do I say? In order to deal with that, we're going to cover a few different issues. The first of it is a response that I hear in my work as a psychologist, particularly with people that are coping with difficult tragedies or medical issues in particular, is the issue of how could this have happened? It's normal. Part of being a normal human being is when something happens, we like to ask why. Why do people tend to do that in particular regarding tragedy? I think people don't tend to ask that about when the sun rises. People don't tend to ask that when other things that they expect happen. And I think the reason is because some things bother us more than others. They don't seem to fit with our general sense of how the world works. And when that happens, when things that feel random, we want to ask the question of what had happened. And I think as a religious person, we try to go further than that and say, well, where's the Yad Hashem? How can we see that? And I think the first source I'd like to share with you, and I hope those have the sheets, is the question of how do we see the Yad Hashem? And if we did see the Yad Hashem in it, what would that imply? Okay, so I'd like to turn your attention, if you can, to the first source that I mentioned on the sheet, which is the Gemara in Brachot. This Gemara here is in Daf Samach, which is the very end of Masechet Brachot. For those doing the Daf Yomi, we really didn't learn that long ago. The Gemara says as follows: Chayav Adam Levarach. The Gemara here is discussing about making brachot about different things, and the Gemara says, "What does it mean that I have to make a bracha on bad things? My chayav levarach al ra kshem shevarach al tova. What does it mean I have to make a bracha on bad things the same way I make a bracha on good things?" The Gemara says, "Iglema kshem shevarach al tova hatova meitiv kach mevarach al ra hatova meitiv." Is it really true? Does it mean make the same bracha the same way I say hatova meitiv? Right? What great things God did, and that's what bracha I make when good things happen. I should say the same bracha when bad things happen. It's not true. We said in the Mishnah that when good things happen, we say hatova meitiv. When bad things happen, we say baruch dayan emet. That God is the one who does just things. Tzidu kadin. So Amar Rava lo nitzracha el lekabelinu b'simcha. Rava says the answer is no, just that you have to be accepted with simcha. What exactly does that mean? So I think it's important to look at Rashi, which is the next source there. Rashi says, Levarech al midat puranut b'levav shalem. Rashi explanation there, it doesn't mean that have to be happy about the bad things. How I'd read Rashi. Rashi says is the same way that we make the bracha of hatov meiti with a full heart. We're really happy by the good thing that happened. So too, we make a bracha about baruch dayan emet. We have to have the same measure of kavana, right? And the same full-heartedness we make the bracha of baruch dayan emet. That doesn't mean we're happy about it, but so too what we call tzidu kadim. We accept the fact that this is what God wanted. The Gemara continues. We're not going to read it inside, but the Gemara continues with the famous story of Rabbi Akiva. And this is said by Amar Huna, Amar Rav, Mishum, Rav Meir, that a person should always say, "Kol da'abid rachmana l'tav abid." Everything that God does is for the best. Right? And the Gemara quotes the famous story of Rabbi Akiva, which is that he was going at night, and the Gemara said that he had a chicken and a donkey and a candle. And he wanted to go spend the night in a city, and the people in the city wouldn't give him a place to sleep. Ultimately, Rabbi Akiva had to spend the night outside, and a lion ate his donkey, and a cat ate his chicken, and the wind came and blew out his candle. Right? Because we know, Rabbi Akiva finds in the morning that a marauding band of soldiers had come through that night, and if he would have been in the city, or if they would have heard his animals or seen his candle, he would have been killed. And therefore, Rabbi Akiva says in the answer, it says, Kol Masha Oseh Kadosh Baruch Hu Hakol L'Tova. Everything is for the best. And in some respect, this is what Rabbi Akiva learned from his Rebbe, right? His Rebbe was Nachum Ish Gamzu, or one of his Rebbe was Nachum Ish Gamzu, and Rabbi Akiva learned this idea of everything is for the best. In my experience, people that have tragedy befall them and are told Gamzu L'Tova, I've really yet to hear some. Unfortunately, because of the work that I do, I get to talk to a lot of people that have had tragedy befall them. I've never met anyone who likes to be told after bad things happened, it's for the best, Gamzu L'Tova. It may be true that Gamzu L'Tova, I don't disagree with Rabbi Akiva and Nachum Ish Gamzu, it's wonderful, and if a person themselves says that, that's fantastic. But telling someone else that happened for the best, I think is wrong. And I think to say further, this idea in some respect, Rabbi Akiva says, right, Kol Mash Oseh Kadosh Baruch Hu Hakol L'Tova. That's very true. On the other hand, if you look carefully, what the Gemara says is Chayav levarech al hara'a kishem shemavarech al hatova. I think what the Gemara there is saying is that really there are two categories of things. There's tova, wonderful, and then there's also ra'ah. Again, some people try to explain that and says, no, the Gemara mean there is it seems like bad, but really it's good. I don't think we necessarily seem to say that. I think that the pshat in the Gemara is that bad things happen also. And that's the way the world works. Bad things happen too. In fact, I believe it's in Yeshayahu, right, where we say that Yotzer Or Ovore Choshech, Oseh Shalom, and when we daven, we say Oseh Shalom Vorei Et Hakol. God creates everything. But the truth is, the original pasuk in Tanakh really reads Oseh Shalom Uvorei Et Hara, that God creates the bad. We don't believe like the idolater polytheistic religion that there is a God of good and a God of evil. We believe that everything comes from Hakadosh Baruch Hu. And this idea, the truth is, if you look carefully enough, it appears all throughout Tanakh that good and or evil, however that means, all the source of everything is really Hakadosh Baruch Hu. And I think we're allowed to call it Ra, and I think that's part of a coping mechanism. In some respect, I think that when we deal with people who are experiencing bad things by saying, no, you thought it was bad, it was really good, that in some respect invalidates the way they feel. I think we are allowed to say that it's bad, and I think that's the simple reading of the Gemara. And when that bad things happens, and then we have our Jewish response, which is, unfortunately, Baruch Dayan Amet, not just for someone passing away, Chas v'Shalom, but even something that is bad news. I'm sorry, this is a bit out of order, but if you this connects to the idea in some respect, which is people sometimes say that bad things happen, like this was the way it was supposed to be. If you look at very fascinating Gemara in Bav Metzia, which is the third source there, Gemara says as follows. This is on Daf Nun Chet Amud Bet. The Gemara there is talking about. Oh, I'm sorry. This is the Gemara in Baba Kama. I apologize. Daf Lamed Chet. So Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda Shchiva Le Barta. Right. So Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda loses his daughter. Amru Le Rabbanan Leula Kum Nezel Nin Chamei. Right, so the Rabbanan say to Ula, let's go and be Menachem Ava, let's go comfort, pay Shiva call to Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda. Amar Lahu, my eitle gabe nechemted de bavlai. So Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda essentially says to them, don't try this, but he says to them, what need do I have for your nechama? I don't want you to come pay me a Shiva call. Right? Any kind of nechama you get from people from Bavel is gidufa. It's heresy. Why? The Amrei Mai Efshar Lemevid, right? Hi Efshar Lemevid Abdei. What's Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda saying? He's saying as follows, that the Babylonians essentially are heretics. Because when they come to pay Shiva call, what they say to the person who's the Abba, they say, oh, what could you have done? Right? Anything that this is what God wanted, what could you have done? Right? Rav Shmuel Bar Yehuda felt that by saying, well, what could you have done? What are they implying? What's implicit there is that had they been able to do something, that they would have done it. right? And saying that you wished it would have been otherwise is almost heresy. In my experience, I would say as follows, that I think there's a subtle line to be drawn here. In some respect, I think it's important to understand we don't live in a random world, right? Everything that that does happen, there's Yad Hashem in everything, right? But that doesn't mean that if tragedy befalls us, that we have to therefore say, this is the, like Voltaire, like this is the best of all possible world. Like this is exactly the way I wanted it to be. That's half true, right? I think on one respect, I say that this is the way God wanted the world to run. But I think a person's also allowed to feel that I wish that God would have had his world run a different way. But he didn't. I think the answer is that I think a person's allowed to wish that quote unquote, everyone say like, well, the whole world's interconnected. This had to be this way because that everything, everything is connected, as we certainly see in the world today. That's true. But I think that we believe that God is omnipotent, and I think a person is allowed to wish after a time of tragedy that God had, quote unquote, done the math in a different way, so that the overall shikulim of the universe had not necessitated this particular thing happening. I don't buy the idea that quote unquote this was the only way that God could have done it. I think God is pretty powerful, and if he wanted the world to work a different way, he certainly could have. In a different context, I work a lot with children with cancer. One of this fascinating book I read about the subject called The Damocles Sword. One of the things they quote a lot of expressions from kids who went through the experience of having cancer. At the end of the book, the closing paragraph was very touching. It said that they asked this kid, what did you learn from it? And he said that having cancer really changed his life, and if it made him really who he was today. And the lessons he learned were invaluable. And he can't imagine, but he says, but it really would have been great if he could have learned those lessons a different way. And I think that would be the same idea. This is the world had, in some respect, this is the way it was, but a person's allowed to wish that God could have done the math a different way. Okay, and if you go the next source, which is Gemara and Brachot, again, the beginning of the Masechet, we're going to skip her to the end. This is really something I think you can see here also. This is look in the Gemara and Gemara Brachot Daf Hey Amud Aleph, the second line of the citation here. Gemara says as follows: Amar Rav, Amar Schor, Amar Rav Huna. Kol Kadosh Baruch Hu chafetz bo medako b'yisurin. The Kadosh Baruch Hu decides that he wants to give a person yisurin. Right, dafka the person that he likes. Okay. Rechia bar Abba chalash. So Rechia bar Abba was very sick. Al legabe Rabbi Yochanan. So Rabbi Yochanan came to do a bikur cholim. Amarlei chaviva nalech yisurin. So he said to him, "Oh, wonderful! Your surin, tragedy is so chaviv, so beloved to you." Amarlei lo hein v'lo scharan. So Rabbi Chias replied back to Rabbi Yochanan, I really would prefer neither of the yisurin nor the schar that a person gets to the yisurin. Right. And again, we have another similar story that when Rabbi Yochanan gets sick, that ultimately he says the same thing, that the lo hein v'lo scharan. Again, the same thing, that it's possible that wonderful things happen. That maybe you get a greater share in Olam Haba because it cleans a person. It's menakeh, right? It's expiation. Or it's possible, right? This a sign that God loves you. I've heard all these things, and that's very possible. But sometimes people answer lo hein v'lo scharan. I think that's a very reasonable thing the person can say if they want. Another thing, again, I hear a lot is people ask, well, it doesn't seem fair. Why did this happen? It's quite relevant in our times. This is actually, we're sitting here in the week right after you finish reading Parshat Ki Tisa. Chazal really understand part of the discussion between Moshe Rabbeinu and Kadosh Baruch Hu and Nikrat Tzur as part of this idea of Moshe says, Hodeni na drachecha. Moshe is really asking that, why is it true? Why is it fair that tzaddik v'rado rasha v'tovlo? This is an old question. If you go back to the beginning of the Gemara, I just mentioned on Daf Hey and Brachot, it says as follows: Amar Rav Yitem Rav Chizda im ro'eh adam shisurin ba'alav yifashvesh v'masav. Right, the person wants to know, well, why did this bad thing happen to me? Says the Gemara, yifashvesh v'masav. Each person should examine their deeds. Pishvesh v'lo matzah. What if you didn't find anything? You look carefully. So yitle bebitul Torah. Then maybe what happened? You couldn't find any big aver you did. Perhaps you engaged in bitul Torah. You didn't learn enough Torah, or you wasted time away from learning Torah that you could have spent learning. Im tala v'lo matzah, and if you couldn't find anything, it wasn't even Bittul Torah. And it must be Yisurin Shel Ava. I admit I don't know what that means. Someone else can tell me what Yisurin Shel Ava means. I would love to get a great explanation. Many great people, I think, don't really understand what Yisurin Shel Ava mean. But I think the answer certainly is that when bad things happen, there certainly is this idea of Yifash Veshem Masav, which means doing a cheshbon nefesh. When something bad happens, to look inward and try to say, well, why could this have happened? How do you know you got it right? I think the answer is you never know if you got it right. Right? What's a person supposed to do? A person's supposed to look and say, well, what we call in the Gemara terminology in Yeshiva, we'd say miman avshach, meaning try to look and find out if I've done anything wrong. Right? Maybe I'm not careful enough about lashon hara. Maybe I'm not nice enough to my parents. Maybe I don't do enough chesed. Maybe I was too cruel one time to somebody that needed something, right? And then miman avshach. If this is indeed why this terrible thing happened, it's fantastic. It's an opportunity to do things better. If it's not why it happened, it doesn't matter. I've still found something that I need to work on, and I should definitely be working on. The trend in the world sometimes, unfortunately, is that when a person, we try to look at these tragedies, whether it be Corona or whether it be other, the shortage of things that happen, a young child that died, we try to look and say that, I know that's why it happened to that guy, and I think that I don't know why I remember learning from Rav Lichtenstein is he found this particularly egregious, and he was very upset at people who would try to say, well, that community tragedy that happened, I know why it happened because of era X, Y, or Z. Rav Lichtenstein used to say that there's only one person in all of Tanakh who is described as Yodeh Dat Elyon, who knows why God does something, and that person is Bilam, and that's not exactly the person whose company we want to keep. I would say further, Rabbi Shmuel Meir Lau, the former chief rabbi of Israel, had a very powerful line. He says, maybe people are greater than I am, but he used to say that Ani lo aret ro'eh cheshbon shel HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I'm not God's accountant, and I don't know why God did things, why he runs his world in a certain way, and I don't think those, again, if Rav Lau said that and Rav Lichtenstein said that, certainly how I feel, and I think nobody knows why things happen. And if you do try to say chas v'shalom to a person who tragedy befell them, okay, I know this is why it happened to you, I would say two things. Number one is, first of all, the Gemara is not, many people have been medayik in the Gemara. It says yifash veish b'masav, right? A person should examine their deeds, right? Meaning internal cheshbon nefesh. A person should never examine someone else's deeds and say, I know why tragedy happened to you, chas v'shalom, right? And then if you do that, again, then we have this is what we call doing this really asur midoraita, unless you think I'm exaggerating. This is the Gemara in Bab Metzia. Gemara Bab Metzia and Daf Nun Chamed Bet. It says, Haketzad, what is Onat Dvarim? Gemara says, Im haya bal tshuva, al yomar lo zechor ma'asecha rishonim. A person should never say to a bal tshuva, remember the things you used to do before you did tshuva? Im haya ben gerim, al yomar lo zechor ma'aseh avotecha. A person's from a family of converts, a parent should never say, remember what your family used to do, your ancestors, your parents, your grandparents. If a person's a ger themselves and comes to learn Torah, should never say to that person, right? To say a person that himself is a convert, you're coming to learn Torah with the same mouth. The Torah was said from mouth of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and your mouth used to eat cheeseburgers or bats or who knows what, right? Chas v'shalom. This is not just a nice idea of midos. Says the Gemara, this is asur midoraita, right? The Gemara continues, Imayu yisurin ba'in alav, right? Imayu chalaim ba'im alav, o shaya mekaber banav. Let's say a person gets sick, or a person has a certain tragedy happen to them, or a person chas v'shalom loses a child. Right? The Gemara says, Al yomarlo kederach sha'amru chaverav li'iyov. A person should never come to one other person. If someone else had these things happen to them, you should never go to that person and do to that person what Eov's friends did to him. Where quotes the pasuk, Halo yiratcha kisaltecha tikvatcha v'tam derchecha. Right? That you have such confidence in that you're a tzaddik, right? You have such confidence that you're a yashar. Zechorna mihu naki avad, right? Ve'efo yisharim nichadu. think about, maybe, didn't, an innocent man never died, right? Can you give me an example of a person that's yashar, that bad things ever happened to him? It must be that you did something wrong. Well, let's help you figure out what you did wrong. Chas v'shalom. This is not a way that we comfort someone who lost a child. In Yos's case, lost his whole family, lost his whole fortune. Chas v'shalom. Right? This is asur mida, right? This is never what a person would want to do. So if that's true, what should we do? I'll tell you what you shouldn't do. So I think what a person should do is... one more thing, I'm sorry that I apologize, is that, again, I think this is certainly, again, have to keep in mind that the context, and this is really a Mishnah in Pirkei Avot, which is Shimon ben Elazar Omer, this is Parak Daled Mishnah Yudchet, Al taratzet chavercha b'shat ka'aso, right? You should never try to comfort your friend or try to calm him down while he's angry, right? First, don't know how to appease him, right? Don't talk about content, just try to help him calm down, and then you'll talk about content once he's more calm. Gemara continues, the Mishnah continues, Al tanachamenu b'sha'ah shemeitau mutal lefanav. Right? People say it's a joke, it's too soon. But this is not just that it's a joke, and too soon meaning it's a joke. When it just happened, right, don't sit there and try to explain to the person what goes on. Right? Take time, just be there for him. Right? And the time will come. Right? It's too raw. Right? We can't try to even comfort a person when it's too raw. Meitau mutal lefanav, they're not even in the ground yet. Right? When after that happens, after a little bit of time has passed, and maybe they're saying Shiva, you can talk to the person a little more, right? When it gets a little bit more distance, you can talk to them a little more, right? And that's really the idea in the Mishnah. So, sorry, as I go back to where we were. So, what can a person do? So, the idea of Yifash B'Shur Masav is still a very powerful idea. It is important to look at it, and the Rambam says in Hilchot Taniyot, he says, "Mitzvah asei min Torah lizok v'lhari b'chatzotzot al kol tzar shabal tzibur." Right, the Rambam says that the idea of tshuva, he says in next halacha, "Zeh midarchei tshuvahu, shebizman shetavot tzara v'zaku leha v'yariu yedua kol shebigla ma'asem haraim hora lehen shekakatuv avonotechem," etc. Right. In other words, the Rambam says part of the derech of tshuva, bird being good Jew, something when tragedy befalls us, we are supposed to look inward and think about what bad things might have be related to this. As I said before, we'll never know exactly, right? But we do have to look inward and try to find out what can we do, how can we do things better. And the Ram continues, "Avalim lo yizaku v'lo yariu el yamru davar zeh miminhag ha'olam ira lanu, v'tzara zeh nikre nikrit." Oh, but the Rambam says, and what if you don't do that? You ignore it, and he says, "Nah, this thing, it's random. It's just it's a passing thing. It's just a thing that happens. It's seasonal, right? It's arbitrary, right?" Says the Rambam, right? Harezu der achzariyut, right? This is a way of cruelty. The Rambam says, and I don't think the Rambam meant the following as a pun, but the goremet lanu lihidabik b'ma'asem haraim. Hidabik technically means to catch, or the contagious. That's obviously not what the Rambam meant, but this causes a person to more bad things to happen. Right? Totzif hatzara tzarot acherot, and causes more bad things to happen. Right? And again, the Torah says in the Torah, if you act with me in a way of randomness, I will also go with you in a way of angry randomness. Okay, what does that mean? Go back to what I said before. It's never the case that we can look at something that happens, whether it's corona or death or destruction. We can never look and say, "Oh, that's the reason." Again, you should never do it and say that's the reason that happened to you. We call that asur midoraita onat dvarim. But even in a personal sense, something bad happened to me, I could never look at it and say, I know why that happened to me. No, just it's nevertheless, I have to use it as a wake up call for tshuva, a wake up an opportunity to say, look inward and say, what can I do better? And then again, like we said before, it's mimanav shach. And I think this falls very nicely into the next idea, which we'll see on the second page from Soloveitchik. Soloveitchik and Vikashta Misham, a very wonderful sefer, talks about there that people want to look and try to find God in the world. And one of the things that makes it difficult for people to find God in the world is the idea that we want to see God, when we're looking for God in the orderliness, right? The whole universe fits together. I had a teacher once said that he found it one of the ways that my high school teacher, I remember Rabbi Parnas used to say that he one of the things that helped him have emunah was that the whole Torah fits together, the orderliness. But I think the Rav points out here in Bikashta Misham that the flip side is also true. Sometimes it becomes difficult to find God in when the world isn't so orderly. And one of the things that makes the world seem less orderly is the existence of evil. And we have to have a halachic response to evil. What is the Jewish way to respond to evil? There's just one small paragraph in the section. I recommend you look at the whole thing. This paragraph, the Rav says as follows: Machshavet halacha toha al hara'a lo mibchina metaphysit. Excuse me. When halacha, the philosophy of halacha, as the Rav says, looks at evil, it doesn't look at it from a philosophical perspective, a metaphysical perspective. Ela mibchina musarit hilchatit. Right, from a practical perspective, an ethical perspective. Eina shoelet mipnei ma v'lama. It doesn't ask why it happened or for what purpose it happened. El l'shem ma. Rather, by saying for what purpose. And he continues to clarify. Me'unyanen hi lo ba'aspekt hasibati. It's not interested in the causal why. Ki'im be'bechina ha'tachlitit shel hara. But rather to say, what is the purpose? Right, meaning what can I take out of it? What can be tachlis about it? What can I do about it? She'elatahi she'elah hilchatit. It's a halachic question, the practical question. Ma ya'aseh adam ha'me'umati masebo v'chai v'yishkeh. A person who faces tragedy, tragedy befalls them. What can that person do and prosper? How can he take it? How can I turn that evil around and make something productive out of it? How can I take this bad thing that happened and use it to make the world a better place? What is the Jewish response? The Jewish response when bad things happen, matzdik tadin is at tziduk adin. That's what we read in the Mishnah, the Gemara, right? Baruch dayan ha'emet. God did this thing, and it must be just. I may not know how, but it must be just. V'achar kach, and after he finishes the tziduk hadin, achar kach hu nilcham bara. Then he fights back. Kovsho u'ma'alei u'dargat hatov. Then he tries to fix the situation and make it better. That's part of the reason why our response to evil or tragedy or suffering is tshuva. Right? Mitoch sivlo adam meromem et atzmo v'shav l'Hashem. Again, because dafka, not because tshuva fixes what happened that's wrong, but any tragedy in the world. I don't think the Rav here means dafka only personal tshuva. Like I figure I should not speak lashon hara, which by the way we shouldn't. Okay, but anytime there's evil in the world is an opportunity to make the world a better place. And that doesn't make the evil justified or say that's why it happened. No, it says the Rav, that's the cause of why. The cause of why is irrelevant. In fact, he said the same thing about Tahamei mitzvah. We don't know why God commanded us to do a mitzvah, whether it's paraduma or honestly whether it's if you read the Rav and Halach mind, even not lo ta'aneh or perjury. I can only say from it, what can I learn from it? How can it impact me, and what can I take from it? The same thing is true for historical events, and I highly recommend if you haven't yet read Kol Dudi Do Fake. It says for Soloveitchik that the idea is what this happened, the Holocaust happened, right? What can I do? How can I take that? What can I learn from it to help make the world a better place? And I think that's true for any event, even from Corona to things that may be less or worse or better, or that may be. Is how can I look at that and make it better? And I think. People have the more catchy version of this idea from Rav Soloveitchik is al tish al lama el lema, right? Don't ask why it happened, but for what. And I think this is a very, very powerful idea. That's the next idea. The final answer I would I guess we'll give two more answers. The second thing I would say is from the Rambam. There's a very, very unusual Rambam in Hilchot Tshuva, Perek Hey Halacha Hey. The Rambam says as follows: "Is Shema Tomar." The Rambam says that how's it possible if God knows everything I'm going to do and He knows what it is before I do it? Right? The Rambam says it's the problem of divine foreknowledge and free will. If God knows in advance that I'm going to be a tzaddik, then it necessarily is the case that I must be a tzaddik. And if God, as it were, knew that I was going to be a tzaddik, then it means that I had no possibility of ever being a rasha. Then how can we argue that it was free will? Meaning, if God knows something, that necessarily means that that's going to be the case, right? And if I could have done otherwise, that means that God didn't really know it. This is a problem of, again, the problem of free will and divine foreknowledge that have plagued Jewish philosophers and even non-Jewish philosophers for centuries. The Rambam has a very unusual answer. The Rambam says, "Da she'tshuvat sheila zu aruka me'eretz mida urechava minayam." The answer to this question is longer than the land and wider than the sea. And many great things are dependent on it. And you have to understand what I'm going to tell you. And then he goes on the long thing that I explained to you in the Yesod Torah. And ultimately, the Rambam says, the bottom, he says, that he gives an answer, which is kind of difficult to understand. And ultimately, the Rambam says, you really can't understand it. You really can't understand the answer. That's the Rambam's take. The Ravid in his commentary there minces no word and says, Omer Avram, Lo nahag zeha mechaber min haga chachamim. Basically, if I said it in modern terminology, he says the Rambam is being irresponsible, negligent, right, stupid. She'ein adam matchil b'davar v'lo yada shlimo. Right, we know that a wise man doesn't start something that he can't finish. V'hu echel b'sheilot kushiyot. And Rambam opened up this very, very difficult question, a very difficult question on Emunah. V'hiniach hadavar b'kushiyah. Right. He left it as an open question. He raised some question that maybe people weren't thinking about it, maybe challenged their faith, and then he left it like that. Right? Right? The Rambam would have been better off leaving it as it is. Why raise a question you can't answer? Why raise a question to make someone challenge their faith? And when a safek, a problem, a challenge of faith he never even had before. Maybe one day a person whose faith was relatively pure, who did believe, all of a sudden one day that person's faith is going to be shaken just because the Rambam raised this issue. That's the Ravid's question. Again, just to be fair, he says, the Ravid says, even though there's no amazing answer to this question, and I didn't quote it here for the sheet, but you can look it up on your own. The Ravid attempts to give somewhat of an answer. That's the machlok with the Ravid and the Rambam. Why do I bring this here? Because I think we can defend the Rambam in an interesting way that might shed some light on the issue. Why would the Rambam? Now, the Rambam was no fool. He says, "Lo nahag." The Ravid says, "Lo nahag zamechaber min hag chachamim." The Rambam didn't act prudently and wisely. The Rambam was a pretty wise guy. Why would the Rambam have done that? My answer would be as follows, is that I think sometimes there's value in showing that there is a question and showing that I also thought of that question and I don't know the answer either. I may have some sense of what the answer is, but I don't really know the answer. And I'm really okay with that. And I'm okay for the time being of living with that question. And I think this is an important idea, that if we shut it down and say there really is no question like that, right? Or that the question is pasul, like how dare you ask that question? Again, the Rav said it literally, he says that's not you're just not asking the right question. But he would never yell at someone, I think, that asked that question. I think to sometimes to validate the question, say it's legitimate, but I just don't know the answer, and it's okay not to know the answer, and you can still be a believing person and still get up in the morning, daven shachar, that shows value also. And the Rambam is saying that I also have that question. I also don't fully understand the answer. I think sometimes gives a lot of value to people who may be in the same thing, in the same place. And I think we can see this from Rav Soloveitchik also, in a different place. And it's a very important article called Catharsis. The Rav talks about different ways in which, the Rav talks about different ways in which he calls a person can purify themselves, and these different ways that we can purify the body, and one of the things he supports is the idea of purifying the intellect. What does it mean, purifying the intellect? So there's a salvation. Cognitive catharsis consists in discovering the unknowability of being. Right? The way we purify our intellect before God is sometimes admitting that we don't know everything. Commitment to knowledge, a scientific inquiry, implies ipso facto the recognition of the eternal mystery which grows with the advance of knowledge. It says the Rav, science is amazing and we can discover wonderful things, but the truth is with everything that we discover, we open up more things that we don't know. Right? And he says that which deepens with the triumphant march of the human mind and which becomes with every cognitive breakthrough more baffling, perplexing, and challenging. We have a tendency to think that we figured everything out, that we know everything. Unfortunately, we've been reminded nowadays that we don't have all the answers yet. And the truth is, I'm quite confident that one day, for example, in Yana Dioma, we will have a vaccine for corona and maybe even a treatment and the like. But that's just going to open up more questions. Hopefully not more tzaros, right? But it's certainly going to open up more questions. And I think this is the idea, is that often we raise a Kohelet type question. Is man indeed a knower? Do we really know things? Man always faces the paradoxical situation of solving one problem, only to discover another problem more complex and inclusive than the first, and which has been precipitated by the very solution to the old problem. Right? And the Rav talks about this idea in Halacha Kamen also. Excuse me, that I may have one question, and when I answer that question, I essentially just open up 10 more questions. And when I answer those questions, I essentially open up each answer to those questions opens up 100 more, and that's not bad. That's just the nature of science. And I think part of that is to go back to what we said about the Rambam. It's important sometimes to recognize I don't know, to say I don't know. People in our times in 2020 in Tafshin Pei sometimes have a very, very difficult time saying I don't know. Right? The Gemara in Brachot, I believe this is also mentioned in Derech Eretz Zuta, has a very, very beautiful idea which says, Amar Mar Lamed Lashoncha Lomar Eineni Yodea Eini Yodea Shema Tit Badeh V'Tochez. A person should teach himself, right? Lamed Lashoncha. You should teach yourself to say I don't know. What a weird thing to say. You should teach yourself to say I don't know, because if you're never willing to say I don't know, you're going to get caught. You're going to think you know the answer to everything, and eventually people are going to catch you on it. Right? We don't know all the answers. We should learn to say I don't know. And when we say I don't know, we don't, because we don't have all the answers. Sometimes when people say, well, why did this happen? You know what? It's okay to say I don't know. Right? Maybe one day I'll have more clarity. That goes back to what we said about Moshe Rabbeinu, right? A very famous idea there that Moshe was told that, maybe in hindsight you'll understand a lot more, but to know in advance, or maybe even to know during the tragedy, that you're not going to have, right? Fanai lo yeira'u. Right? And a similar idea, which is if I could suggest, is even in Brachot Daf Vav Mebet, which is a whole long list of things that Chazal say that this is really what you get the reward. And we'll close with this idea. This is Amar of Papa, right? Agred de Beitamia Shtikuta. What a weird concept. The reward for being Menachem Avel is being quiet. Okay, so one could say perhaps simply that the halacha is that if you if you go to pay a shiva call, the halacha is you go there, you sit quietly, and you wait for the Abel to turn to you and talk. Okay, that's probably a simple thing to say. It's true. I would suggest a little bit further that I can't tell you how many people have had people do Bikur Cholim. I'm talking about the sick people that have had people come do Bikur Cholim to them, or people that are sitting Shiva, and have come people who came to be Menachem Avel. And what happened was, the people who came to pay the Shiva call would say, oh, this is what happened, or Gamzula Tova, or Shiva call, or come to be Bikur Cholim with the hospital and say, oh, this is what happened to you, or you can get better from this, or just do this and you'll be fine, or just take some of this and all that, and Safta Drora, this is how she got better, or don't worry. You know what? A lot of times the people that I've spoken to have been in those tragedies would have been really much preferred that someone just sat with them and kept them company and be imo anochi b'tzara and just kept their mouth shut. Right? Agor de betam yashtikuta. A lot of times the real sachar a person can get for doing nichum avelim, and I would suggest maybe even bikur cholim, is just sit there and be quiet. I would say that you should go give that person a hug, but unfortunately nowadays that's not possible right now. Shenizke one day to do that also, but just be with that person. And unfortunately, what happens in the real world is people attempt to try to comfort the person, whether it's the sick person or the mourner, and they're so uncomfortable. People are so uncomfortable in our times about awkward silence that they open their mouth, and you wouldn't believe the kind of stuff that comes out. A lot of the stuff that these things that come out of their mouth, unfortunately, when the times of Bikur Cholim Nichum Avelim, end up, rather than comforting the mourner or helping the sick person, actually end up making the situation significantly worse. And my advice to people is always just to sit with the person, keep them company, imo anachi b'tzara, try to be with them, maybe help them, no save ol chaveiro, and don't worry about being quiet. It's Agor de Beitam Yashtikuta. I hope this was I'm sorry that I can't be with you in person with all the people that are watching this for the four corners of the world. I guess my tefillah are all with you that we can overcome this current tragedy as soon as possible, and I guess stick with the gist of the shir. We'll never know why it happened, but hopefully at least we can think about either during it or after in the aftermath what good can come of it, and hopefully we can figure out how to use this to help each of us make ourselves better and help make the world a better place. So I wish everybody refuah shlema to all the sick people, and we should all stay safe.